Hello, and welcome to episode 166 of Pop Culturally Deprived, where each week we watch a movie I've never seen before, which is still most of them, and talk about the good, the bad, and the stammers. This week we're going to be talking about the King's Speech on your Do You Know the F Word podcast. I'm Mandi Kaye, and you can find me on Twitter at Mandi Kaye.
And I'm Matthew Vose. You can find me on Twitter at Matthew Vose. So this week we welcome Emmy from the wonderful So You Want to Read Tolkien podcast. Hello.
Hi, everyone. Thank you guys so much for having me. You can find me on Twitter at Epic Emmy.
Awesome.
That's a great Twitter handle.
Isn't it? I'm very proud of my past self for thinking ahead.
Right?
Every week we're like, we should come up with something way more interesting. Goddess Mandi, stuff like that, you know.
No, I'm good with Mandi Kaye.
The moment you leave it, somebody else is going to snap it up and you can never go back. So
Right. Yep.
So we love to read Tolkien podcast here. It is one of our faves to hear you guys talk about chapter by chapter through Tolkien and start with the difficult ones, which is amazing. So obviously you're here with us to talk about, you know, deep, meaningful fantasy.
yes. The King's Speech.
Yeah.
Which is in its own way fantastical.
It did occur to me, this is the time of Tolkien.
Yeah, right? I mean, World War II.
Yeah, I'm assuming that doesn't play a part in it. Why The King's Speech? Why was this the film that, you know, you love so much?
So, hilariously, I have like 3 all-time favorite movies. Mm-hmm. One is The Incredibles. The second is the entire extended edition trilogy of Lord of the Rings.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
Gotta stay on brand. And then The King's Speech is like number 1 on my list of favorite movies. And it's funny because when I first saw The King's Speech, everything that could possibly have gone wrong went wrong. My entire family went all together, which we never liked the same movies.
Okay.
The King's Speech was nominated for an Oscar, which nothing turns me off of a movie faster than learning it has been nominated for an Oscar. Like, I don't know what it is about the Best Picture list, but I just don't like them.
Right.
We ended up going to an art house theater that always smells like burnt nachos. And we had to sit in the very front row of the theater, which like is always super uncomfortable.
Yeah, right.
But it was like within 3 minutes of this movie starting, my entire family was like, oh my God, we love this.
Okay.
Which, given the start of this movie, it's like so awkward. So it was a really pleasant surprise. I find this movie really refreshing, and I just love the like buddy cop feel of this weird period drama.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm really glad that at least one of your top 3 movies is one I hadn't seen, so we could do it
Yeah.
on the show.
Right? I was really excited.
And there is this thing, like, let's just take a quick tangent into Lord of the Rings. You can't differentiate the films.
No.
It's
Why would
just
you want
a tale. Yeah.
Yeah, God, they were perfection, the way that they filmed them. So yeah, I'm just like, all 3 of them together, bulk them up there.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Okay. Mandi, The King's Speech. Do you want to tell us a bit what it's about? Let's start with that. Let's start with the core stuff.
Okay. So it is the story of King George the Sixth. How do you say that word?
King George the Sixth?
Sixths.
I have no idea.
Say that word.
Sifted thistles.
So in 1936, King George VI had an impromptu ascension to the throne. And this is the story of that ascension and the speech therapist who helped the unsure monarch overcome his stammer. Which I don't have a stammer. I just can't say sixths.
It's a lot of S's altogether, wasn't it?
It is. It is.
Okay. It's not black and white. It's not an old film. It's a modern film. It's a sort of thing you like. It's, you know, British comedy drama thing. Hey, how come you never saw this one?
I honestly have no idea. I remember when it came out thinking that looks like a really good movie. It had Colin Firth in it.
Yeah.
Why would I not watch it? I don't know. I just didn't. All I can think is maybe around that time I was more interested in comedy. But that's probably not true. Maybe I just didn't have time or forgot about it. I don't know. I have no good reason.
Okay. No reason.
No,
Okay.
no reason.
Okay. I hadn't seen it all the way through either. This was my first full watching of it. I'd seen
Really?
the main stuff and sort of understood it. We've talked about me in British cinema in the past, and this is a little bit, the epitome of it. It's lots of people coming on and doing their thing, but they didn't shoehorn in Dame Judi Dench, so I can stand it a little bit more than normal,
Got just about everybody else in it, though.
Yeah, exactly.
It did, but I mean, there are only 7 British actors in the world, so who else were they going to put in this movie?
Like, this is kind of the thing. I could stand this because it's not Dame Judi Dench and Bill Nye and Stephen Fry, the people who get cast and everything. It is at least other people who get the chance to act. So,
That's fair.
Yeah. Okay. Well, The King's Speech is a 2010 historical drama written by David Seidler and directed by Tom Hooper. It stars Colin Firth, Geoffrey Rush, and Helena Bonham Carter. Seidler had a stammer as a child and was inspired by the king's success in overcoming his own stammer. In the 70s and 80s, Seidler researched the king and Lionel Logue, but found very little information on Logue. Logue's son Valentine agreed to speak to him and make Lionel's notebooks available, but only if the Queen Mother permitted it. She asked him not to during her lifetime, so he halted the project. Then 3 years after her death, in 2002, Seidler returned to the story. He wrote a screenplay, but then turned it into a stage play at the advice of his wife. Once the play was heard, he was urged to rewrite it yet again for the screen. Geoffrey Rush became involved after the producers broke etiquette and hand-delivered the script to his home. The film was both a critical and commercial success. The number of awards and nominations is so large that it has its own Wikipedia page just to list them all. It received the most Academy Award nominations that year, 12, and won 4 for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Actor.
So it's actually really funny because it's now been rewritten again back to a stage play. And it's doing a world tour. I just saw it in Chicago 3-ish months ago. It is almost verbatim the movie, except they cut out less of the historical facts. It was very weird watching it on stage. And it included, the 3 British actors that were not in the movie were then in this play. So,
but you can see it because it's set in, or could be set in 2 or 3 rooms.
yeah, no, that was exactly it. They had the tech crew all dressed up like footmen so they could walk in and out of the stage without disrupting the flow of the play. It was really cool. But it was like watching this movie on stage.
Do you prefer one over the other, or were they just different experiences of the same thing?
I think I definitely prefer the movie just because it felt like the play was attempting to be as funny as the movie and the pacing wasn't quite the same.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, I don't know.
Hard to watch when they're so similar.
Yeah, really was hard to watch. I kept being like, that's an exact quote. That's an exact quote. Especially since I've seen the movie so many times.
Okay.
Yeah, just different.
Where are we able to find it this time? Is it available over there?
It
Netflix.
is on Netflix.
Nice.
Thanks, Netflix.
Yeah, it is on
Yes.
Netflix here. Apparently, I did record this last year in August to watch, so this was a good prompt to be, hey, I should go and watch that.
Did you record it just because you wanted to, or did you have hope we were going to do it on the show one day?
Little column A, little column B. I at some point I will go through and watch all the Best Picture winners. So there is also a thing of collecting them on the recordings.
Yeah. I'm very impressed that you recorded something in August and then kept it for so many months.
Oh, I've got stuff from
Because
years.
He's kept things for years.
I cull everything. It's like, I haven't watched that in 3 weeks. Goodbye.
Oh, wow.
It's never happening.
Oh, I'd never watch anything. The backlog is too long.
Yeah, we had one recently that I think, was it maybe Days of Thunder that you recorded back in 2017?
Oh my God.
Because you knew it was on the list.
Oh, no, it wasn't Twilight.
How did your TV not just delete it for you? Or they not just no, we give up?
The DVR's huge. It's got loads of space. It's all good.
That's awesome.
Although I do have the issue at some point, if I try and watch all the Best Picture winners, there's a couple of Woody Allen films in there. And I'm not sure I want to, but also it's a list that needs completing.
Yeah, that's a struggle.
Let me know if anyone else has faced this sort of issue. Right, this has got, the British actors in it, Colin Firth and Helena Bonham Carter and Geoffrey Rush, and directed by Tom Hooper. Mandi, have you seen their other stuff? What do you know them from?
I didn't know Tom Hooper by name, but I recognize his filmography list as a director. I have seen Les Mis, the movie version.
Oh,
Sorry.
I mean, it was the longest 3 hours of my life.
I had so many hopes for that movie, but then it was just like I stared into people's eyeballs the entire time. I just needed it to be slightly further away from their face. Tom, why did you do this to me?
That is fair. Yeah. I had not seen the stage version, so I've only seen the movie version of Les Mis. And it was tough, but most of the music was good.
Yeah.
Most. He also did Cats this last year, but I have not seen Cats, and I don't think I'm going to.
Emmy, have you seen Cats?
So, no.
Okay.
Cats is it's my first Broadway play that I ever saw in my life. It's my
I'm
first
so
Broadway
sorry.
musical memory. I was 7 years old, and I got out of my seat, climbed under my chair, buried my face in my jacket, and cried until my mother took me out at intermission and then let me leave.
No.
That is my memory.
I can't
of
believe
Cats.
I can't believe you ever went back to see a Broadway show after
I know.
that. Oh my
I see
gosh.
so many of them all the time. That is like my burning memory of like a play. My first play was a traumatizing experience.
And you had to wait until the
it's a good story.
intermission.
Yeah, because we were in the middle of a row.
Oh, no.
So like we couldn't leave, and I wasn't crying loud enough to like get my mother to suck it up and carry me out of the the theater. I knew you have to be quiet in the theater. Anyway, it's a funny story now.
So when I went to see Wicked, there was a mother and daughter next to me, and the daughter had sort of grokked onto in the program about the flying monkeys and was a little bit scared. And the play starts with them just climbing down the stage and running around and making noise and stuff, and she just let rip. Just screaming out. So the mother bundles her up and gets her out, and then 10 minutes later, some usher comes back on, gets their bag, and walks back off with them.
Oh, poor kids.
That's what you needed to do.
Yeah, right? If I had known that I could have escaped sooner, I'm sure I would have. I love kids in theater. I know some people get like really terrible about it, but most of the time they're adorable.
Yeah, you fantasize more and project the imagination. It's wonderful.
I was sitting next to like a 4-year-old at the Percy Jackson musical, and they just talked the entire. They were like, "This is what's happening.
No.
This is what's happening." They were like super cute, and they like knew all of the Percy Jackson story, and they were so excited to be there. And I was like, "That's the Broadway dream. This is like, come on,
Amazing.
we should be this happy."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Aw. Okay.
We were doing something, weren't we? Okay.
We like
Oh, yeah, we
on
want
this
to
show,
talk
don't
about this
worry.
as well. I've not seen Cats either, but Mandy, you remember we had Tim Batt on ages ago? He and Guy just did a mini-series where they went to see cats every day for a week. And on day
Oh my
day 7,
God.
they rented cat costumes as well.
Why?
Oh God.
It's a-
Okay.
It's a really good mini-series. They dig into that film quite a lot.
No. No. All right, moving on.
Colin Firth? Do we know Colin Firth?
We
Never
have
heard of
talked
him.
about Colin Firth several times on this show before, but any opportunity for me to say Pride and Prej, I will say. We've also talked about Jeffrey Rush before because I made you watch Shakespeare in Love.
You did.
I think this is our first Helena Bonham Carter, though. Is it?
Ooh, it might be, actually.
Because I looked through the list, and I've seen her in several things. Harry Potter, Fight Club, Big Fish, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Sweeney Todd, also Les Mis. But I don't think we've had her on the show before, which is interesting.
And that might be the thing, because you've pretty much named her big films.
Her big stuff, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking through this. Like, Fight Club is probably the one I think we would have made you watch, so... Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but that came out the summer after my senior year in high school, and so, Brad Pitt's abs.
Yes.
We all watched that movie a lot. 17-year-old Mandi, oh, yeah. Seen it.
So, moving on. Similar material. I feel that this is a good point, probably for both of you, to stake your claim about the enjoyment as Americans of films and productions about British upper-class culture and the royal family.
So I Googled, show me films like The King's Speech.
Right.
Because I couldn't think of anything. And you hadn't put the extra bit here, about the royal family
it
or
is
the
my
British
fault.
upper class. So it didn't even, it is absolutely your fault. So movies, I couldn't think of another movie that I've seen that's similar to this. I'm sure it exists, but based on everything that came up in all of the lists, I had not seen any of them. But I am quite a huge fan of Downton Abbey.
Right, okay.
Which falls square into this time period even.
Yeah.
I think I even mentioned in my thoughts doc that there was an episode, the king speaking on the wireless for the first time is what got Lord Grantham to allow a radio in house. Like, it was a whole thing.
Right.
So, Downton Abbey. That's what I got.
Have you watched The Crown?
Yes.
No.
Okay. With Helena Bonham Carter.
Yeah.
I haven't.
She's just like, no, I have no idea.
Nope. It's in my list on Netflix to watch, but
Isn't everything?
yes,
My list on Netflix is it's never happening.
it
like
grows
Matthew's DVR.
exponentially
Yeah,
faster than I watch things. So yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so you like this sort of, the stylistic British culture.
I love
do.
this. It's just not in a time period that I normally watch. I was a German major. All of my World War II dramas came from the other side of things. So yeah, I don't know.
Well,
I couldn't name another movie TV show besides Downton Abbey and The Crown that took place in this time period about the monarchy or the aristocracy that I don't know.
Yeah, I think we had some, but I don't think they've probably ever been imported upstairs, downstairs, and so on. However, Mandy, did you enjoy The King's Speech?
I did.
Yay!
Were you worried?
No, it's my favorite movie, but I still feel somehow like I've accomplished something.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah. No, I did. I really enjoyed it. It was fascinating. It was, it told a tale that we are not taught in American schools. So I had absolutely no idea that there was a king that was king for less than a year and abdicated the throne because he wanted to marry a twice divorced American woman, right? Like, completely blew my mind that was real.
Okay. Yeah, so that is probably my first question is I mean, the Wallace Simpson stuff is pretty core to it, but the, machinations of the court at the royal family, did you know anything about this stuff before watching it?
I mean, no, I knew that there was a king.
Okay, good.
You have one over there on that side of the pond. There is a king.
Yeah.
There were, in fact, many in this movie alone.
Yeah.
No, I learned absolutely nothing about this period of time, but then we left the movie theater and I immediately was like, how much of this was real? And then I discovered all of the crazy crap that I never knew. Like, King George V was euthanized. He did not die of natural causes. His doctors gave him a combination of morphine and cocaine so that he would die on time. They needed him to depart.
They didn't show
in
that
time.
in the movie.
I know,
Yeah.
right?
That was the doctor's choice. It wasn't even like the family and he asked for it. The doctor was like, oh, this will be good for the king. Like, you don't get to decide when someone else dies.
Wait, you did what?
Yeah, right.
I know. Never addressed.
Yeah.
They never addressed it.
Oh,
Wallace
that's the
Simpson
least
is
of the things they don't address.
No kidding. There was the whole, Wallace Simpson was widely regarded to have been a spy. She was a political spy who, left the game because she managed to ensnare a king. They never talk about that. David / Edward the Eighth, Edward the Seventh. I can't remember. There's a lot of ones.
Seventh.
Eighth,
Yeah.
I think. Whatever.
Okay. Yep.
Sorry, not whatever. I just don't know.
One king over there.
Went to visit concentration camps. Mm-hmm. He was not a member of the Nazi party, but he was an actual Nazi.
Gave the Nazi salute and
yeah. And
wow.
Was supporting you can invade the United Kingdom and I will support you as long as you put me back on the throne. It's excuse me? Wait, you did what? Never learned any of that. Blew my mind. My small 18-year-old mind.
And the film doesn't dive into the politics of the rise of Nazi Germany and so on.
It flirts with it.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's that scene in the wine cellar where they're like, who's going to deal with Hitler? And they're like, somebody else.
Yeah.
Well, and the prime minister resigns largely because of how it's handled.
Rearmament,
Wasn't
right?
it?
I'm pretty sure he didn't want to rearm. He did want to rearm.
He did that prime minister did not want to rearm.
Okay.
Or
that makes more sense.
History has talked about him not wanting to rearm enough. You know, if we
Okay.
had rearmed more, we would have been more prepared for the war. But, you know.
There is also a really interesting critique of this movie, which I didn't know until I was like Googling quotes from this movie about Churchill, because Churchill supported King Edward, David, in his character to be like, no, you should be able to marry Wallace Simpson and still be king. Like, you should fight this abdication. Like, his connection with Bertie and Helena Bonham Carter character, who I can't remember the name of. Thank you. Also Elizabeth.
Yes.
The name everyone has.
Yeah.
It was just not real. They just completely made it up. I was like, oh, well, we definitely think that Churchill did everything right on this side of the pond. We love him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And over here, you know, that you don't talk about prime ministers before him. It is, you know, he's the first.
It was his
first PM.
job.
Yeah, basically. Like, we do learn some of this in school, but you know, that sort of detail we don't get into. But the abdication of the king, and I think because it's got a kind of, you know, nice moral ending. It's like, oh, he was in love, so he abdicated because he fell in love with someone who meant he couldn't be king.
That is definitely how they framed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Showing the end of his speech where I can't do any of this stuff without the support of the woman that I love by my side, right? And I was like, huh.
But there was also this whole like
odd.
political pressure with the prime minister saying, if you do this, I will resign and you will not have the support of a government. Because and it's slightly strange watching now, because it's a time when there was more power in the monarchy and more closer ties to the political side of British government. But it was also a time when half of Europe had a dictator or some sort of, you know, very different political oversight.
Right.
So it's really strange
wild.
watching now. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved diving into that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely
cool.
a history lesson.
So is that some of what sort of sold it for you, and just, you know, watching it and going, wow, this is actually interesting stuff that I don't know? Did that help?
Yeah, I think so. Some of it is just, it's a fascinating story. You know, it's a feel-good story, right? You know, watching someone overcome, part of it is overcoming their own feelings about themselves. Because he was so down on himself in the beginning of the movie, and watching him kind of grow as a person, regardless of whether he's a king or not, right? Just watching him kind of become more comfortable and confident in his own skin. I love stories like that. And the friendship between Bertie and Lionel was wonderful. I mean, there were moments where I just wanted to smack Bertie upside the head, but,
Yes.
you know, Lionel always treated him like an equal and never lied to him. And it was pretty great.
Yeah, I really feel like, just diving into that feel-good friendship movie, this is like a buddy cop movie. Okay? It really is. Like, opposites attract in the best ways. And they're like fighting crime, except the crime is really just like attempting to solve all of Bertie's self-confidence issues in a timely manner. And, oh, it's so sweet.
It is.
Also-
it really is.
So witty. Like, they're just so funny. They had great chemistry on screen.
Yeah, it's really got that sort of, you know, stiff one and loose one, as it were. The sort of Eddie Murphy, Nick Nolte, you know, coming together type thing. Like, it works really well.
They did a great job.
I did reach out to our friend Kate at Katie Sharu, because she is a speech therapist. And I thought,
Oh,
it would
what
be,
did she think?
well, it would be quite interesting. She did say that, you know, her specialism isn't quite in some of this stuff, but she said it's like the stuff in what the film says. I'm going to try and see if there's a really good direct quote here. People said that it was reasonably accurate for the time and for some of the things that were being tested and practiced and different methods of treatment. But the film's release itself was problematic because people suddenly went, oh, we can all do that and fix people with speech problems. And the issue is,
It's not real.
yeah, you generally can't fix a speech problem. You know, you can learn to deal with it and manage it, but you can't stop it. I think there was a comment in somewhere in the production stuff that they had written a Hollywood ending where he gave the speech. I am king and I shall give you a speech.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. But no, that's not the thing. You just learn how to deal with it in the best way. And I think what they deliver in the film is really good because it's so similar to the speech as was given. You know, he is doing an impression of that thing.
Well, and the movie also boiled down something that took years to really be just over a couple of months. Like, I mean, I know that their relationship and they kind of did some footnotes that said this relationship spanned decades, but you didn't get that impression watching the movie. It really felt like it was 6 months, a year. Well, it would have been a little over a year since he was doing it before his brother took over, right? And his brother was only king for like 340 days or something.
Yeah, I think the film actually spans about 4 years.
Mm-hmm. But it has to be 2 hours, so
yeah, exactly.
It really doesn't feel like it.
No.
Right, yeah. But I wonder if that kind of contributes to the fix-it mentality, because in the movie it feels like it happened so much faster than it really did, because it took him years. And he actually started working with Lionel earlier in his life than the movie showed.
Right, okay. So the thing I think it does well, and again, stuff from Kate, who said that people who stammer are often expected to do a lot of hard work, to overcome the disfluency, and to figure out how to solve it, to put other people at their ease and to come up with these coping mechanisms. And I think the film does a very good thing of, he does reject the methods. He said, fine, I will live with this. I will find another way. I'm not going through your thing. And it is the point at which he, he does it through the slight strong arming of hearing on the record that he's spoken and done it well, and his wife sort of pressuring him, as well as becoming king and needing to do it somewhere.
Yeah.
But he does go, okay, maybe there is some value in this. Maybe I should do the thing. And it's when he actually gets into it that, yes, it's done. Rather than people showing up with marbles for him to chew on and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like smoking will relax your esophagus. I was like, excuse me. What? You're
not
a
how that
doctor?
works.
I know. Gosh, the things we used to think are just astounding.
Yeah. I really appreciated, I guess, kind of in that same vein, the way Lionel approached it, because he asked him things like, are you naturally right-handed? And we kind of learned that over the course of his life, Bertie had been expected to course correct himself. They forced him to wear braces for his legs. They, tied his hand so he would be right-handed instead of left. And they approached those things as if they're bad. Like that onus shouldn't have been put on him. And I appreciated that they took that stance.
Well, just like a lifetime of abuse, which is not something you normally think of. It's like, oh, they're the prince. They live a charmed life. It's like, no, he was like starved.
Yeah. Oh,
what?
It was tragic.
And yeah,
that was astounding.
The left hand, right hand thing, that's the thing you hear about kids at school. Suddenly, for me growing up, I have friends who have said, oh, I was told I had to write with my right hand. I couldn't write with my left hand. And they just had to learn it.
Really?
Yeah. Just,
even that recently.
Archaic views in doing these things. Crazy. Well, the main thing I think Kate did want to get across was that she said, sneak in a warning of, don't try this at home. There is a reason people study and become doctors to do this sort of thing.
There are professionals.
Right. But it was interesting that, like, they really do go into the range of different techniques. There is an element of psychoanalysis in this. There's an element of physical therapy in this. There's an element of mental, overcoming it and coming up with a strategy in your head. So, he says, like, take a run at it or say it in this way or do something that allowed him to deal with it.
The tricks are important.
Yeah, it's...
Right, that was like one of his quotes.
Feet.
Absolutely. Yep. It's so good to see all of them, and the way they did some of the montages where he was giving one of the speeches, opening the factory or racecourse or something. And you see
the racehorse was at the beginning, and it was terrible. I think the factory is the one that we're thinking of, where he actually used techniques
better.
Did it?
Good.
Yeah. The swearing technique was apparently invented entirely for the movie,
right?
Which I was like, well, it worked, and I guess it caused a lot of drama in the box office world about how this movie was rated.
Yeah. The BBFC, so the BBFC are our version of the MPAA, although less secretive, and they do actual proper ratings and public stuff. Yeah, they rated it, I think, high because I think they rated it something like a 15.
It was a 15. I don't know what any of it means. It was a 15, and then it was a 12A.
I want to say
contextualize.
Yeah,
that.
For a 15, no one below it can go. So NC-17 or rated R. One of those it would be.
Probably.
Right.
Well, I don't think I've ever seen a movie
if
rated
it's rated R.
NC-17.
If it's rated R, you can get in if you have a guardian with you.
Okay.
NC-17, you cannot.
Right. So I think NC-17 might be fairly close, although obviously it's a 15, so it's slightly younger.
Yeah.
Fine. But they got publicly castigated by the director and others for that. And I think because they wanted the low rating, because this was going to be much more of a family film.
That's how you make money.
Yeah. on their podcast, they have referenced this a number of times and said, oh, we did that because it was more comedic and so it was in the thing. They're still to this day trying to justify it, and I don't think they should have. I think it deserved a 15 rating for excessive swearing in the middle that makes it look like, oh, yeah, kids who are 12 or something go around swearing like that all the time.
I don't know. I feel like it all served a point, and in no way was it like you should go swearing at other people. Like that, I don't understand. Here in America, it was rated R, which...
Right.
It is not an R-rated movie.
No, but it was for the swearing.
I
think I read that it was either Tom Hooper or Helena Bonham Carter gave examples of movies that have like graphic torture scenes that are rated lower over in the UK, and that's why they fought it so hard. And that's part of why it got lowered.
Yeah. And I think there is something to look at those other things, but I think the swearing, there is this thing of, and I think you have the same thing over there, there's only one F in 12.
Yeah.
And for a film to suddenly sort of break that and do something that you could have young kids and young families going and seeing without necessarily like, these are not terms you should be using in public, and they serve a time and a place. It's probably the thing.
Well, I think I can see it both ways, but in the grander context of the entire movie, I think it should have been rated lower.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I also see that, like, if they had rated it PG-13, the first soccer mom who walked into that movie with her kids would have lost her mind.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
it would have been a huge problem in America.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah. And especially...
I didn't realize there was drama.
Yeah.
Yeah. They did consider... Tom Hooper refused to consider cutting any of the cuss words, but they did consider beeping them out,
Which is like worse.
to get the rating lower, but they ended up not. So
it's the sort of thing where I think it almost would have been funnier if at the point the king is supposed to be swearing, we cut to being with his sons and it's coming through, but it's muffled. So it's a bit more just, or like you see him behind glass going at it and swearing, but you can't hear what he's saying or something.
That would have been an artistic way to do it. I could not picture them bleeping out the swear words because I'm like, this is such a like literary art movie, just like stylistically. And then like you'd have these bleeps. I would have been just so jarred.
Confused. Yeah, absolutely.
And especially coming from, we watched Four Weddings and a Funeral a few weeks ago. And that opens with a lot of swearing that they then recorded a different dialogue track for the States.
Of course they did. Of course they did.
Yep. This was actually very not dissimilar to that whole swearing, like the same cadence, the same way they used the words. Like I've never heard in a movie somebody say fuckity fuck before, right? And they did that in Four Weddings and a Funeral, and he also did it in the King's Speech. He said fuckity shit actually in the King's Speech, but it just caught my attention because I say stuff like that, but I've never heard anybody else do it, and to have it be in two movies so close together that we've watched was interesting to me.
Serendipitous.
You're gonna have to. I'm gonna have to like beat myself, aren't I?
Because we're Brits. When we swear bloody well.
Yeah,
definitely more creatively than we do.
True story.
I do think that the direction in this film, there's times it's sort of like where he's filming and everyone's off center and they're doing, slightly unusual ways of filming or non-standard ways. I kept looking for meaning in it, and I'm not sure I could find anything other than the style. Did it like stand out to you that, oh, this means it's a different place or a different feeling? Or
well, I thought it was supposed to make you uncomfortable. Like, I thought the point was, like, he feels claustrophobic. He feels really uncomfortable with these people. He's always in the golden ratio. Well, maybe not always, but close to always. And then everybody who's trying to tell him what to do ends up being directly in the center of the screen.
Okay.
Like, his doctors and the priest or whoever's, like, trying to order him and fix him is center stage. So, I don't know. I didn't look up much about the cinematography, but I thought it was just supposed to be like, you are awkwardly close to his face because you should be as uncomfortable as he is.
Yeah, that's the impression I got as well. The scene that stands out the most to me is one where I can't remember exactly what was happening because I was so uncomfortable it kind of just went away. But we cut from his face, which kind of seemed normal. And then we cut to a crowd of people in the same room, but they shot them from below. So they looked like they were looming
Looking
over
down on
him,
him,
even though
yeah.
they weren't. But you kind of got that claustrophobic, like, they're judging me
Right.
kind of feeling. And I think that thread was there throughout the movie. Anytime we were looking through Birdie's perspective.
I would agree.
I like
It
that.
was a deeply point of view movie.
Yes.
His anxiety just like bounces off the screen,
Yeah.
Yes.
which was terrible
It
for
stressed me out a little
yeah,
bit.
exactly. I was like, I don't do well with secondhand embarrassment. Every time he like has to give a speech, I'm like, no,
Right?
don't do it. I don't want to hear
like,
it.
My heart is pounding right now just talking about it. I'm like, oh God, I'm so embarrassed right now.
I know it has to end well, but gosh, at what cost?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the performance from Colin Firth is, it feels slightly stereotypically British, but it is very gripping. Like, you can see why he won awards for it. It's such a good commanding performance.
Yeah. There is a part, though, where I can't, though, he's like, they're watching the film of Hitler, and he's like, I have no idea what he's saying. And I was like, you're German.
Well,
There is no way, like, you all spoke German. The entire royal family. There's, like, no way you wouldn't know.
he's called Albert.
Anyway. Yeah. Like, come on. What are we doing?
Yeah. I think I saw that in one of the like critical reviews, was that there's no way that he wouldn't have known what Hitler was saying.
Yeah. They were very German.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was my moment
It's-
of, like, excuse me?
And that you've reminded me that the good moment where, is it Churchill who tells him he should be King George?
Yes.
Like, and that became such a thing in the Second World War of the image of George with the lance and the evil dragon that is the Reich being killed. Like, you can see him already thinking a couple of years, this is going to be useful.
That wouldn't surprise me.
But they don't lean into it. It was fascinating watching how much they didn't go into what else was going on and, big topics conversation.
It was very much a people movie. Yeah, it was cool. I love it. There's a reason it's my favorite movie.
Going back to Colin Firth's performance really quick, though, there was one moment that he was crying.
Okay.
I'm not a king. I'm a naval officer, that's all I know. I'm not a king, I'm not a king. I'm sorry.
And it was the worst on-screen cry I have ever seen in my life. I mean,
He's emotionally stunted.
Is that what?
To be fair, his character is supposed to be bad at this, but I don't know.
Maybe,
Yeah,
maybe.
you're not wrong.
So it was interesting though, because like in the scene where his father dies, like he cries, but it's very silent, and he's just got tears on his face.
Stiff upper lip.
And I thought that was
Yeah.
lovely. That was lovely. But then you get to the moment where he just breaks down. With I think Elizabeth is there with him, and it's just the worst. It's like so forced and so right. That's kind of what he did, and I was like, Colin Firth, I expect better than that.
I
from
know you
Colin
can
Firth.
cry better than this.
Yes, I'm sure we've seen him cry better than that.
I can't think of when, but I'm sure you're right.
If you're not going to cry, go jump in a lake and we'll see how we do for that,
There you go.
Yes,
That would have fit right in this movie.
Yeah, it really would have.
Would have been fine.
Yeah. But other than that, his performance was wonderful and delightful. He did really, really well during that final speech, watching him like steel himself, right? And like kind of gird his loins, and you could see him trying to just get to the next sentence, and you could feel his stress, but also his success. Like he was proud of himself as he was doing it. Like Colin Firth just conveyed all of that so well, just through his facial expressions and the way that he spoke. He just can't cry. He can't cry.
And you can also see that as listening to it, you can see, this is not an easy speech to give, talking about we're at war for the second time in 30 years. So, this is
Last time a lot of people died.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah,
time
yeah.
was worse. I love that so much. I also love when he's giving the speech that he's in like that weird cocoon of hideousness
Yeah.
with all the blankets.
Yeah.
It's like,
I don't know. That kind of looks like my old recording studio.
He's like, I wanted it to be familiar. Like, I wanted to remind you of my office. And I was like, your office. With the most hideous wallpaper I have ever seen in my entire life. Not my definition of a comforting space, but okay.
Right. It was soft.
That's true.
I love just for the image of the thing that he then walks out and sits behind a desk, pretends to read for a second, and then gets to move on. Amazing.
It's all fake.
Yeah.
That's what this taught me. Everything is fake.
All right. We've been talking about this movie for a little while. We've also been gushing about this movie a lot. I think we've already talked about a lot of our favorite moments, but Matthew, I want to know really what your favorite moments were.
I don't think I have favourite moments in there. There are those small things, those things of, he comes out, but he still has to sit behind the desk for the photo op. And it was really interesting to read that Colin Firth was not the first choice for this. That Paul Bettany and Hugh Grant were up for it first and passed. And you feel like all three of them would have given basically the same performance. The stiff upper lip reserved British performance.
I can see Paul Bettany doing it more than I can see Hugh Grant doing it.
One feels more serious than the other. I feel.
Yeah. I would have put Hugh Grant as David more than Birdie.
That's just because I'm used to seeing Hugh Grant act juvenile.
Well,
but
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the problem, isn't it?
I think
You're
that's
not
what it
wrong.
is.
Expect him to do
would have been
comedy.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why he passed. Maybe he felt he would have to go more serious for this. That said, though, Guy Pearce is really good in this. To have an Australian doing such a good British accent when you've got another Australian not even caring how he sounds anymore. And Geoffrey Rush, who normally does such a good British accent, having to now be Australian. It's really, it's weird and fun, the two of them.
So was he trying to do an Australian accent? Because he just sounded British to me.
Geoffrey Rush.
Yes.
Geoffrey Rush, I think, is Australian, he says, clicking on Wikipedia and talking slowly.
Wikipedia will tell us.
Yeah, Australia. Yeah, Geoffrey Rush is Australian.
Well, he didn't sound Australian to
He
me.
totally did.
I don't know that I can tell the difference. So
Clearly I can't.
I'm from the Midwest. I'm really bad at accents.
I mean, Colin Firth and Geoffrey Rush sounded the same to me in this movie.
Right.
I did like when you walked into his office, there's like that Sydney painting or something in his waiting room to try to like contextualize like this guy's an outsider. He has a decorative poster from a prison colony, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Guy Pearce is British but grew up in Australia, but does a very good British accent in this. And, Guy Pearce, frankly, does a good accent in everything he does. Jennifer Ealey's accent is pretty good. I think.
Yes. I mean, we already knew it was, though. We saw her
But she
do
was doing an
Pride and
Australian
Prejudice.
accent in this, and it was pretty good. However, let's talk Helena Bonham Carter. She
Loved
looks
her.
like the Queen Mum. She sounds like the Queen Mum. For someone who I don't think acts very much in the film she's in, she is Helena Bonham Carter in the film she's in.
That's fair.
Yes.
And this is my thing with
Yep.
British actors. They come on and do the thing they do. She's actually really good in this. There's a couple of moments
Didn't
where
act anything like anything I've ever seen before. Right? I mean, I know her from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Harry Potter, and then here she is being the queen, and it's like, this is very different from Bellatrix Lestrange.
yeah.
Yes.
This is as far from Bellatrix Lestrange as you can get.
But no, I really liked her in this, and I think this was the interesting. So I actually did some reading on the Queen Mum a while ago because there was a picture of her in So I Married an Axe Murderer, and I was interested why they were throwing darts at that picture. And it turns out there are some debating opinions on her, and apparently not necessarily being the nicest person to people like Wallace Simpson. And she was not very nice to Wallace Simpson in this.
No.
No, she wasn't.
So it was.
Listen, Wallace Simpson was cutting down trees. I also would have cut her.
I quite like they gave her a side. She wasn't just pushy wife, causing him to do stuff. And she wasn't just nice, royal, sort of trying to keep the appearances. She actually had a personality, and that was good.
Yeah. I really liked her line, though, that the reason she decided to marry him was because he had a really beautiful stammer, so he'll never be king.
We'll be fine.
Well, this is
Joke's on you.
And this is the rumor. I don't even know if it's fact or rumor. That she had gone after his older brother and hadn't gotten anywhere, so went for the younger brother.
Interesting.
Whether
That
that's
wouldn't
true or not, I
surprise
don't
me.
But it's really hard because, like I said a few weeks ago, for us, the Queen Mum is sherry drinking, bets on horses, you know, the nation's Nan sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Was it odd watching her, like a younger iteration of her in this movie?
No, because you sort of grow up with images of the royalty through the ages. And like I say, you do learn some of this in school, so...
Yeah.
You know.
I was surprised to learn, well, I guess surprised isn't the right word, but like, they asked... She was like, yeah, but I don't want you to do this until after I'm dead. And they were like, yeah, okay. Like, we can wait until you die and then we'll make this movie about your life. Here in America, they'd be like, we'd like you to wait until we're dead. And Americans would be like, no.
Gotta make that dough.
We can make money off of this.
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah. And that's what makes me wonder if like other reasons for them diluting some of the political aspects is getting more assistance from the royal family, getting access to notebooks, getting access to, you know, understanding what happened. Because if you start going against them, it's very hard to get access to get things released.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
So,
We hear lots of things on this side of the pond. It's fascinating.
And we never know if they're true
We
or
never
not.
know. We have no idea.
well, according to this, it's all lies. Everything you hear is a lie, especially the lies.
One last interesting fact
Go on.
about Helena Bonham Carter is she was filming this simultaneously as she was filming Harry Potter.
Yeah, which one would
Yes.
this have been? Would this have been Deathly Hallows?
So, yeah, Deathly Hallows Part
Yeah.
2 should have been being filmed at this time.
Right.
And it came out the following year.
Yeah.
Because 1
So-
came out 2 months before this movie.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were deep in Bellatrix Lestrange
Oh, yeah.
territory. So her going back and forth between these two is awesome. Like, and not having any of it bleed through is pretty great.
It is. Actually, Helena Bonham Carter has my favorite line in this movie. There are I have a lot of favorite lines, but it's when they're at Lionel's house and his wife shows up early and they abandon the queen in the dining room and the queen has to be like, you know, it's your majesty the first time. And then it's ma'am as in ham and not mom as in palm. I'm like, I was like, thank you. Thank you, your majesty. That was great. You handled that with aplomb.
Yeah. I like that they portrayed the royals as very human. Mm-hmm. You know, you don't often get that. You get the stiff upper lip all the time. And you know, I would imagine, like, even with the swearing, like, it got criticized because the royal family would never say those words. I call shenanigans on that. Behind closed doors, of course they do. Right? And so I enjoyed seeing a very human side to the royals, which we don't often get to see portrayed on screen.
And this couple particularly, so when the war started, they stayed at Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle, so they stayed in the London area. There is a quote from the Queen Mum about when Buckingham Palace finally got bombed, and, you know, it did get hit, and they almost died, I think, in one of them. But she said, I feel like I can now look the East End in the face, because we've been hit as well. Like, they had a whole thing of they were there during the Blitz as well. So they are, you know, part of the people, part of the country.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but, like, the class distinctions were only getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, we're going to go full on French Revolution. So, like, they left it to their daughter, really, right, to, like, rehab what the royal palace presented. But
And
I don't know, it's wild.
Just as an aside, it's interesting the parallels that you had. So let's try and get this right. He's the great grandson of Queen Victoria. Okay?
No, isn't he the grandson?
His father is the grandson.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like,
I believe you.
the
I
interesting
don't know.
thing that's the parallel is Queen Victoria was queen for so long. Her son was only king for a few years, maybe 9 years, but not a very, very long reign. And then his father was king for 20 years, maybe a little bit longer. You know, a sort of not too unnormal reign. But it's a little bit like what would happen now is in Charles taking the throne. You know, Charles is fairly old at this point, so he would not have the longest reign, potentially.
Right.
And then William would have the chance to have a long reign. It's really interesting, the parallels of when you have a long monarch, suddenly you get these sort of series of ancient monarchs for a while. And then one who comes in fairly young.
There's really interesting wedding pictures from Bertie and Elizabeth's wedding. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but Queen Victoria dictated like what their wedding was going to look like, and their wedding pictures is Albert is in the center of the wedding picture, and the bride is all the way at the side of the screen. And everyone in the picture is looking at this bust of Albert. It's actually a little bit terrifying.
I have to look this up.
Brilliant.
Yes. Wait, I should see if I can find the one I'm talking about. Photography has come a very long way, hasn't it? Because I can recognize no one's faces.
They don't look like Colin Firth.
They don't. And you know what? They have sideburns in all of these pictures that they cut from the movie. I found like a crop of the picture I'm thinking of, but I can't find the full-size picture.
Do a Google image search.
That
Get a lot of sides.
sounds promising.
Nobody smiled in these pictures.
I know. Was it because they had to hold the picture for so long, or...
The royal family don't smile. They barely wave. that hand thing.
Yeah, why?
That's what you said.
I'm
I was like,
where
what
did
is
it come
that?
from?
It is this thing that's how the royal family wave. I've never understood it, but it is a constant joke because they are the only people who do it.
Them and in The Princess Diaries. I'm just saying.
Yes, that is true. All right. Did you have any other favorite moments that we haven't talked about?
Helena Bonham Carter got me through this film. Absolutely. She's great. She's really good.
She is great. Watching her and Bertie together was great. They had a great relationship.
Agreed.
At least portrayed in this movie. I don't know if in reality they did, but they certainly did.
Yeah, who knows
In
about
this
reality?
Hollywoodized version.
As we've learned, it's all lies.
I suspect Colin Firth has chemistry with everyone he meets.
You could have chemistry with a coffee cup.
He's just so charming.
Yeah.
How about you, Mandy?
You know, we've talked about most of them. The swearing is probably my all-time favorite thing.
Okay.
Followed by Myrtle's reaction to having the king and queen in her house. You know, Lionel's hiding because he didn't tell her he was working with the king. And Bertie's like, dude, you just have to go out there. And then she's like, are you staying for dinner?
Like, I have to ask, but also I know the answer.
God, no.
Yes. Please say no.
And Elizabeth is so good at that moment. She's like,
I know.
That's such a wonderful offer, and we would love to, but...
You can tell she's
Just-
like, I would literally
so
fall off a
good.
bridge.
Yeah.
And then there was this one quote where it was right in the first meeting between Lionel and Bertie. And it was when Bertie said, you know, the doctors have said smoking is fine and, you know, uses the throat. And Lionel's like, they're idiots. And Bertie says, they've all been knighted. And Lionel goes, makes it official then. And he's very quippy in this movie. And I loved it. Yeah. Yeah. And he didn't take any shit from Bertie. Like, he did not care that he was royal. He always addressed him as his equal and, like, pushed him and challenged him. And I really enjoyed that.
That's
It's a
interesting.
buddy cop movie.
Yeah, because I think he did care. I think in the fact he doesn't tell anyone. He doesn't, you know, he knows this is a big get for him. And whilst he still does his normal, how he would work with someone, I think it does have an impact on him.
Well, yeah. I think when I say he doesn't care, I mean it doesn't make him treat him any differently than he would treat any other patient that he has, right? Yeah. Like, he doesn't give him the royal treatment.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no...
You know,
original,
I think
right?
that's what I mean. Yeah. And then I just absolutely enjoyed it. It was wonderful. This actually may be my favorite Jeffrey Rush role that I've seen.
Okay.
What? I'm kidding. I mean, it's my favorite. But I'm also over here like, he's the best Captain Barbossa anyone could ever ask for.
I know.
Listen.
He's so good in Captain Barbossa, and he's so good in Shakespeare in Love. It's a mystery. You know, like, I love him in everything that I've seen, but I do think this is my favorite.
This was, yeah. They just did such a good job.
What about you? Is there anything we haven't talked about yet, Emmy, that you just love? Besides the whole movie.
Besides the whole movie, everything. I've already talked about my passionate hatred for the wallpaper. No, I think we've gotten to hit up all my favorite parts.
I have a question. And maybe you know this answer, maybe you don't. But since it's your favorite movie, you might. I read that the set designer in one of the houses saw this old peeling wallpaper and loved it so much that she used it in the whole room. Is that the wallpaper in Lionel's office, or was that something different?
I have no idea.
Okay.
We should find the answer to that, though, because now I have a mystery to solve.
I can't remember like where it was, but it was because they were using a historical location, and she just loved the way the wallpaper was peeling and was like so great, apparently.
Well, that's the only place I can think of in the movie that had peeling wallpaper. So I don't know where else it would be. It just
So the horrific wallpaper that the set designer was so proud of.
Listen, I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying it's tasteless, which fits really, honestly, Lionel's life very well.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I actually think that was on the Wikipedia page. I'm going to look it up really quick. Yes. Eve Stewart, the production designer, liked the modeled peeling wallpaper there so much that she recreated the effect throughout the entire room. And that's Lionel's consulting room. Yep.
Brilliant.
Well, she was very good at her job because the sets all looked fantastic.
Oh, they absolutely did. Yes. All right. Well, is there anything else that we need to discuss about the King's Speech?
So you've seen Downton, and you want to see The Crown.
Yes.
Have you seen King Ralph?
No. Is that John Candy?
Dan Goodman? John Goodman.
John Goodman. Are you sure? Either way, I haven't seen it. I can like picture the VHS cover.
Just thinking, Americans in British royalty films.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
Okay. Dear listener, whatever you're doing, if you think we should watch King Ralph,
Oh God.
it's one of those that I remember from childhood as just being ridiculously silly. So, does it hold up? Is it any good? I have no idea.
John Goodman and Peter O'Toole.
Peter O'Toole. Okay.
All right.
Add it to the list.
Clearly. There's
I
deep
refuse, but
commitment right
Matthew
there.
has, Matthew has editing privileges on the list. So if he wants to add it, he has all of the authority and empowerment to do so.
Next week, King Ralph.
No.
I don't think it would go down well with Rachel either.
All right. If you would like to join the conversation and tell us that we do not have to do King Ralph, you can use the hashtag PCDeprived on Twitter. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Eloquent Gushing, or you can send an email to podcast@eloquentgushing.com.
Emmy, thank you so much for joining us and bringing such a fun film to watch along.
My
Yes,
absolute
thank you.
pleasure. I'm glad
This
you
is
guys
so much
liked
fun.
it.
So we have covered The Incredibles in the past, and believe it or not, we have seen Lord of the Rings, although at some point we are watching the animated Lord of the Rings,
Oh, God.
because I love
Good
that
luck.
film.
Good luck, man.
Do you
No,
have
it was fun.
other recommendations for the list? Anything else that you love that you think we should seek out?
You know what I did, and I should have written them down because now they've all left my head. There is a Miyazaki movie called From Up on Poppy Hill that I don't know that you guys have it on the list. I don't know. Have you seen it, Matthew? Is that why you're giving me the nod? There is... It's exquisitely beautiful. It's really well done. There's one moment in it that while I was watching it, I literally sat up and I was like, excuse me? What? Derails the entire movie. And I think it would give you guys a lot to talk about.
Okay. Interesting. I don't think I've heard of this one.
It's one of his smaller works.
It's another one of the Studio Ghibli films. So I think we're going to keep returning to them and hitting them every so often. But yeah, that is a beautiful, beautiful film.
Also takes place
Probably
in
time
World
to
War
do
II.
one.
Yeah, because Miyazaki has this obsession with flight and the planes that Japan developed at that time. And
Yeah, this
Okay.
one is about the families that are left behind and the boats that are on the water and watching, your father would leave for months at a time to go fishing and get supplies or whatever, and then would finally come back or not, or would be dead. And there are these kids, and they go to this boarding school, and they have to rehab an old house, and there's a lot of stuff that happens. It's great. I did a whole, I watched everything that Miyazaki ever made, which is both great and also terrible. He's made some really weird stuff, but that was one of my favorites.
Okay.
interesting, not like the Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle.
Oh, Howl's Moving Castle is my favorite, but I
Okay,
also know
okay.
that one was on your list already. So we're
Yes, it was.
throwing this one in. Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Yeah, really pleased you could make it on. So where can people find you? Where can they find your podcast?
Absolutely. So you can always find us online, youwanttoreadtolkien.com. Our podcast is pretty much everywhere you can download a podcast, Apple, Google, Android, etc. Or you can find us on Twitter at So You Want to Read Tolkien. So, yeah, please stop by and tune in. We're working our way through Return of the King
I was
and
about to
having
say,
a lot of fun.
If I put you on the spot, where are you up to at the moment?
Let's look at my book.
Nice.
Nice.
She has the book, ladies and gentlemen.
I do, yes. The Battle of the Pelennor Fields is our next chapter.
Oh, good stuff.
So,
Good
yes.
stuff. And,
it is so good.
And so after that is The Hobbit? Have you done The Hobbit yet?
We did The Hobbit.
You have
so
done
we've
Hobbit.
done the
Okay.
Silmarillion, The Hobbit, all the way up through here. So then after this, I don't know if we're going to work our way through the appendices or if we're going to work our way through the Lost Tales and Beren and Luthien and all that stuff first and then double back to the appendices.
But you're at the sharp point of Lord of the Rings, though.
Yes.
Good time, yeah.
Yes, we
Nice.
are.
Yeah, go and
It
check
is.
that out.
It's been
So You
fun.
Want to Read Tolkien. Pop Culture Deprived is completely funded by our lovely listeners like you through Patreon. Anything you can give, even $1 a month, it gives access to exclusive content, bonus shows, early access to shows, and physical merch. You can find out more by going to patreon.com/eloquentgushing.
And we will be back next week with another episode where we are going to talk about the Blues Brothers with Emmy's co-host Rachel from So You Want to Read Tolkien. Until next time, I'm Mandi Kaye.
And I have a sieve of sifted thistles and a sieve of unsifted thistles because I am a thistle sifter.
A thistle sifter?
Yes.
Thistle sifter?
Yes. I am the sixth thistle sifter. Pop Culturally Deprived is an Eloquent Gushing production. For more information, visit eloquentgushing.com or find us on Twitter at eloquentgushing.